Welcome to another edition of the Mistake-Free Real Estate Podcast. I am your host, Marck, and today, pleased to be joined once again with my good friend, Jimmy Vreeland. Jimmy, how is the east side of the state of Missouri, brother?
It is. Spring actually hit today. The trees are blooming. I de-winterized the Humvee. Things are good right now.
Awesome. Well, hey, we're just on the heels of another extremely powerful Collective Genius Mastermind event. And as always, we like to do a recap. So for those listening for the first time, Jimmy and I will typically get on post-CG, so every 90 days, and talk about our biggest takeaways from the event. This event was held down in Scottsdale. Small side note, on top of the basketball that Jimmy and all his buddies do, we actually had a very successful golf outing this time, which was super fun.
And then, Mark, you say got pretty high pressure putt. I don't know if we'll get into all the details. But,
we won't go into the details, but I was, there was some money thrown around on my inability to make a putt, and I proved them wrong. So that is always nice.
It wasn't as much the money being thrown around, but the trash talking that I really respected, and I thought it really amused me.
It was a fun day. Cool, man. Well, hey, Jimmy, let's start with you. We had some amazing guest speakers. The first one was actually a guest speaker. I've heard Allistar talk before. Aleister McDonald is a really unique contrarian thinker that came in as a guest speaker just for a quick 30-minute hit. He was actually just staying at his house up in Prescott, so came down to Scottsdale. He's good friends of some of us in the group, myself, Frank Carver, and Daniel Marcos, to name a few. And he knew that Daniel was speaking, so Allistar presented. And what were your biggest takeaways from Allistar's presentation, and how did you enjoy it?
I mean, he might have titled the presentation Load-Bearing Fictions, but I had never heard that term. And I spent the whole weekend questioning. I'm like, what are my load-bearing fictions? And I'll try to do my best to summarize what that means.
Yeah, let's unpack that.
Yeah, for me, it meant check your premises. Like, there's an old Mark Twain saying that says, it's not things that people don't know that necessarily hurt them. It's things that people think they know, but just aren't true, that are the most damaging. And, load-bearing fiction is a premise or an axiom that you're running your investing platform off of. You're running how you live your life off of. And they could just be a pure fiction. He went into the whole thing that the difference between a treasury bond and the Federal Reserve, that who controls the interest rates. I was pretty convinced by the end of his presentation that treasury bonds control interest rates, not the Fed. And when he started his presentation, I was like, the Fed uses it as a lever. So that would be one example. That was an example of the load-bearing fiction he brought up.
Yeah, I think my takeaways from Allistar was simply because I had a lot of people coming out to me and they're like, man, Allistar, what a polished speaker, super smart. I feel dumb just being in the room with him. But what's my takeaway? What's my action steps? And I said, hey, look, sometimes we bring presenters to Collective Genius to challenge your train of thinking. It's not about give me your steps 1, 2, 3 to go implement. It's about challenging your line of thought. And he is an absolute contrarian thinker. And I think we need to do, I've heard from others that said, yes, they loved it and we need to do more of it. But bringing people in that would just challenge our train of thought. And he was certainly someone that I took away as someone who would, you would look to for, my take on it is, I believe that there's so many people that just follow the sheep, right? They follow the herd and they don't do any internal thinking of their own. And he challenged us that you have to think outside, whether it be the media or the government. None of them have our best interests at heart. And you have to truly analyze where your company's at, where you're trying to go, and what industry pressures we're going to face along the way. So, yeah, impactful for sure.
And then to kind of second what you're saying, the fun I have in running a business, the fun I have in investing is not reacting on what I see in the media. It's reacting to the second and third order consequences that I see in the media. That has always been tons of fun. And if there's one thing that when I personally invest, it's like, I don't think I'm contrarian. I see a stimulus and I'm wondering, like, what's the second and third effect going to happen? Like, for example, with COVID, I think everybody at CG was a little nervous for maybe the first 4 weeks because we thought the full economy was going to shut down. But once we saw all the money the government was printing, everybody just started licking their chops. Everybody was just like, wait a minute, they're going to print a bunch of money, inflation's going to rise, and we invest in hard assets. It's like, this is going to be go time for all of us. But if you were just watching the media at that point, it was like, curl up in the fetal position, we're all going to get hosed.
Yeah, I think another load-bearing fiction for some is that there's a market crash coming, and I should not be investing in real estate. And I challenge people out there to think, what else? It's not so much the timing. Anyone who thinks anytime you get into timing the market, my mind immediately screams to, you're speculating, right? It's like,
yep.
For those that, because if you don't get into real estate, you have to think, what else am I going to get into? And I think the next turn will be largely, I think the stock market is extremely frothy right now, and we are absolutely in danger of some kind of correction there. Now, people would counter and say, well, of course, real estate is in the same position. However, my counter to that would be twofold. One, we have not gotten to the same general loose lending practices that we did in 2004, 5, and 6. So, we're not just lending money to anybody. It's been very, very tight. And secondarily, Wall Street is firmly entrenched in single-family homes right now, Jimmy, as you well know. So what do you think would happen if there was a 5% correction? Oh my gosh. Wall Street would just say, hey, I would need more, because they already have 700,000 homes cumulatively across America, and they're wanting to get to X million of them down the road, 30 million, 40 million, whatever that number is. So they will slowly and carefully be picking up all of these assets, and if there was a downturn, they will only gobble up even more. So I think artificially, maybe, but for sure, there's some kind of floor on the downturn when real estate happens. Thoughts?
But then, we talked about this on a podcast last year, but the fact that Wall Street's creating the floor for the real estate industry. And I wanted to when I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today, I wanted to talk to you about this, but I'm assuming most of your buyers, the latest objection you're going to hear on why it's not a good time to buy is because interest rates are rising.
Yeah.
Can we go through, in my mind, the interest rate cycle real quick?
Please.
Now, maybe interest rates matter if you're an active investor. Maybe. And I'm with you. The best time to buy long-term investment real estate is always right now. Because here's the downside. So if you bought at the low of the interest rates probably last year with the COVID stimulus, that's great. But what did we all do when interest rates, what happened to your average purchase price as interest rates went down?
It went up.
Yeah. Us as turnkey providers, we're going to always have our margin. So our margin is our margin. As interest rates go down, our purchase prices go up, and then the purchase price for the end buyer goes up, right? And now as interest rates go down, for all of our acquisitions, we're already pushing like, hey, interest rates are going up. We can't pay these prices. We're already getting better pricing, right?
For sure.
So our margin stays the same, but maybe our purchase prices go down a little bit. And quite frankly, what I would do is I would buy when interest rates are high and then refi everything when interest rates are low, because you'll probably get a preferable buying price when interest rates are high.
No doubt. And the other thing, to just summarize again and finalize this comments from Allistar, Allistar made it very clear that he believes strongly that the bottoming out of interest rates in, call it 2020, will be a long time before we ever get back. So those that are like waiting for interest rates to go back down to 2.75 or 3%, it's not going to happen anytime soon. So
only if there's another variant.
Yeah. The Zulu Delta or something.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. The other guest speaker, the keynote that we had there was actually my CEO coach, Daniel Marcos. Daniel's someone who actually had a call with him today, but spent a lot of time with Daniel. Super, super smart guy. He is the CEO of the Growth Institute and partners with Vern Harnish from the Scaling Up organization and teaches scaling up to CEOs. He came in and was talking about the CEO system. There's systems for COOs, there's systems for sales and processes and marketing and admin and finance, but there is no good CEO system. And he came into a room full of CEOs and business owners to try and allow us and teach us how to create a system of accountability and the most productivity for us sitting in the CEO seat. What were your main takeaways from Daniel's presentation?
So the two main takeaways are, am I a good enough person / CEO to build the team that my team needs? So when I invest in a morning routine, when I invest in a vacation with my family, when I invest in personal development for myself, it's truly an investment, and it's best for the team, and it's best for the business, it's best for the clients and the customers. That wasn't a new idea to me, but that definitely reaffirmed it for me. And him being your personal coach, I'm sure you have a much better in-depth. I'm sure you're hearing a lot more than I do.
Yeah, he works on me, works with my mental game in terms of, Mark, you have to be the right person to attract the right people. So when you're trying to grow and scale, now first he obviously challenges me, why do you want to scale? So we kind of talked through that and got over that hurdle and set my 25-year goal, my 10-year goal, my 3 to 5 year goal, and then my annual goals. But then, he absolutely talks about having... The thing I liked was when he talked to the group, and actually he had not directly addressed this with me, maybe because I'm doing something right already, but to the group he was very clear. Of 7 days, the CEO should have 3 days of rest, 3 days of strategy time, and 3 days of execution time. Wait, that's 9 days. Sorry. 3 days of rest and then 2 days of strategy and 2 days of execution. So he encouraged all CEOs to get back to a 4-day work week so that you could actually have that rest, recoup, and thinking time, which he thinks is just so valuable.
And then I just got off a spring break vacation with my family, and I cannot disagree, or I cannot agree more. But now, for me personally, getting to that third kind of thinking day, that's on the, that's going to be a little bit of a challenge, something I got to work towards.
Yeah. Hey, everyone does, right? Everyone's a different position. But yeah, that's something that I have. And again, even, I take Fridays off, but at the same time, if, the wife's out of town or if she's busy or doing something, clearly I'm not just going to sit there twiddling my thumbs. But I will say that me stepping out of the office is so much more productive. Daniel has actually been pushing me to not have an office in the office.
The no office solution,
right? The no office solution. He believes that I should have the conference room. So I come in for meetings, address it with my team, and then leave and let them execute. Again, I'm a little ways away from there, but I could see that happening down the road. Again, everything that Daniel preaches, I do, and stuff seems to work well. I can tell you right now, our team is loving the early morning daily huddle. Which, do you do a daily huddle with your team, Jimmy?
Yeah, we've been doing that for a few years.
Yeah. Powerful stuff. So we could actually do another podcast just on that alone.
The no office solution, I did that when I was a strategic coach. You're a naturally neat person, but I am not. And so it was great for me because whenever I had a desk, all I would do was create a mess. So I know I had to clean up after myself every time I left, which was huge. I could not make a mess. And you should try it. You should try it for 30 days. I loved it. That's
awesome. Okay. Yeah. So have to be the right person to get the right people. And then focusing on a few things to get better as well. Well, let's talk about the inverted. He had a really good slide, and I'd love to delve in. I know that it impacted you, Jimmy, from, I think, a discussion you and I had. But do you remember when he inverted the leadership model? Think of it as a tree where instead of, most accountability charts or organizational charts, you'll have the CEO at the top with a line down to the COO, and then you'll have another line down to the director levels for sales and acquisitions and construction and property management, all the different avenues you have. And then the frontline workers kind of down at the bottom. He kind of flipped it and said, look, the CEO, the business owner, the CEO, and the COO are the roots, along with your core values, are the roots of the organization. So picture a tree below the ground, the roots, that's what's keeping everything grounded. Then you have the trunk coming up, which are your core processes, your systems, your accountability, your enterprise software that you have for the organization, and all your managers and director level. And then the branches, if you can picture it, would be your frontline workers and employees that are out there, customer facing. I thought that was a great analogy. What did you take away from that?
I actually, do you listen to much or read much from Jocko Willink?
Only the one book.
Gotcha. But he's always talking about bottom-up organizations instead of top-down, and that the best leader is a leader servant, and the best leaders are coming in, seeing where their team's struggling, offering support, providing coaching. And, when Daniel said that in the meeting, I immediately thought of, the best leaders I had seen in the Army were the guys who were, character-wise, physical-wise, they provided a role model. And then also they were, they weren't your buddy, but they were always providing you support. They were always providing, if you had a gap in training, something you needed to learn, if you, in combat, actually, if you needed a new unit to come help you, like as bullets were flying, like those were the best leaders. And so like immediately when he flipped the accountability chart, I was just like, oh, I already understand this. I just need to implement it.
I love that.
And so it set a big new target in my mind. It's like, hey, where can I help? Where can I support my team?
So those are our keynotes, and we had it was a great event. We talked a lot about marketing at the event on day one. We could get into the details there, but really one of the biggest takeaways for me, Jimmy, was your presentation. So first of all, congratulations for getting the nod for the main stage at Collective Genius. That's quite a feather in your cap, my friend.
I mean, you asked me to do it. Thank you for that. But I loved it, dude. It was so much fun. It's just, I love that group. And the fact that I got to speak to everybody in the group for an hour, I had a ton of fun.
Well, you had fun, but others got massive takeaway. So I want to spend a little bit of time talking about your top 4 things, because Jimmy's presentation was all about taking massive action. The reason that we asked Jimmy to speak at the event was because we have a lot of new people that are coming in, and, going to a mastermind event, specifically the Collective Genius, where you quickly feel like you're the dumbest guy in the room. It's like drinking from a fire hose is the best way I can describe it. And so there's a lot of people that are like, oh my gosh, and they're so overwhelmed, but they want to try and take massive action. Jimmy is someone in the group that has taken the most strides and really turned their business full 360. And I think, Jimmy, you would comfortably say it was, CG's footprint is all over your business. Is that correct? You want to give a brief recap of how it has impacted your business?
Let me phrase it this way. I would be bankrupt without CG. I would not have a business without that's as simple as I can make it.
Yeah, from acquisitions to the way you dispose of your assets to the way that you onboard new employees to the way you have everything along the way, right, is impacted by it.
There is maybe there's 5% of original Jimmy and Susie ideas in my business, and the rest is things we saw at CG.
Copy and paste.
Just went home and implemented.
Well, I love it. You gave a pretty good framework, and I thought we'd address it today because I see it as a way not only we use the term mastermind a lot, and some people listening may be in their own mastermind, maybe part of the Cashflow Tactics network, but also I think that there are just times where you get as part of a think tank. You might have two buddies go out to lunch, and how can you take massive action when you're with a group of people that are looking to you're looking to make change and you're looking to get some advice from other people? How can you take massive action? So, Jimmy, I'll kind of headline these and you can go into more detail, but I'll read through them all first and then we'll go to detail. First, there's 4 steps. Number 1, look for the slap or run to the abyss. The second one is to find or align and draft behind someone who's running the 4-minute mile or doing what you do. The second one is solely pick one thing. And then fourth or lastly, give more to get more. So, hey, first of all, look for the slap. Talk about the CG slap and running to the abyss.
So when I first rolled into CG, I just wanted everybody to think I was smart. Be like, this guy. And I think for most people, especially most hard chargers, would you agree that when you walk into a room, you want to kind of
validate yourself?
You want to put your chest out, start peacocking a little bit, be like, I'm the man, right?
For sure.
And sure, that's a natural thing everybody's going to do. But when you're masterminding, when you really want to get better, you want to do the exact opposite. You want to assume the person you're talking to knows something you don't and can find a blind spot for you. That's what I call a CG slap, is a blind spot I didn't see I had, or something I was currently messing up that I needed to change. And they want to point it out to you. They don't want to be sweet and nice and have you not notice it. For example, your CEO, Chris Johns, is a phenomenal CG slapper.
You want to give an example?
He slapped me again. He has given me a lot of slaps, but the slap this time was about empowering my team. We went out to dinner, and he's like, Jimmy, like, you got to let go. You got to let go in a big way, and you got to start empowering your team. Because we were talking about Daniel's presentation.
Yeah.
And a year ago, it was like, Jimmy, you have to start retail. You have to start flipping retail houses, or we're going to come here every quarter and make fun of you.
And that worked out well for you.
If you want to get massive action out of me, you just got to promise me you're going to make fun of me if I don't change. Drives me insane. It's like I'm a 12-year-old again.
Okay, so looking for the slap. The other thing you liked, and I like this analogy really well, is running to the abyss. And it comes from the analogy, if you can picture like a mountaintop with then going down the other side or hitting the abyss. In scaling up, they talk about the valleys of death, where you reach $1 million in sales and you hit an abyss, and then you reach three, whatever it might be, 3, 1, 5, 10, 20, whatever. At each stage, there is going to be an abyss. It doesn't matter what stage of business you're in, you're going to hit hurdles, you're going to hit roadblocks and obstacles, and you have to, kind of like the obstacle is the way. You have to run to the obstacle, run to the abyss, knowing that the community, in our instance, CG, is going to be there for you to pull you out of it.
So, yeah, it's not as easy to be like, oh, I'm hard, I'm just going to run to the abyss. It's like, it's not hard to run to the abyss when you have a mastermind behind you. When you have somebody in the room who's already figured out whatever abyss you're running into. I talked about in the presentation, when I first started business owning, I was just like, yes, I'm not a corporate employee anymore. It's sunshine. It's straight line success from here on out. And I just wish someone would have told me, the person who turned me on to this idea was Daniel Marcos 3 years ago. I just wish someone would have told me, okay, if you want to keep succeeding and keep growing, you are just going to run into valleys of death and abysses. That's just part of the game. And if you're not in that, you're not growing fast enough. Not
exactly. Which brings us to point number 2, which is align and draft to someone that is doing what you want to do. And that's why, people say, how much does it cost to be in a mastermind? And you just don't even think of the cost anymore, because what would it cost you to not be? You can walk into a room and say, I need to get better at seller direct marketing, and then point at 10 people who are doing it better than you, go have lunch with them, learn with them, talk to them offline, go visit their office, and find out what they're doing, and just copy paste, right?
Yeah, but the first step you have to admit is that, hey, you need help, and that there's somebody else out there who's doing it better than you. And that's a kind of a mindset you have to build. It did not come naturally to me. I will tell you that.
Well, there's humility there, and that's what when you're walking into a room where you're trying to puff your chest, and Jason Medley says it all the time. You got to drop your ego at the door, and I thought he said it to try and make the room get along. What I'm realizing now, it's actually to gain the most out of the room. You should drop your ego. He's saying that not to for you to help others, but for you to help yourself. Just drop the ego.
Yeah, be willing to learn. As so the audience doesn't know, when I walked into CG, I did not understand turnkey at all. I didn't even know this existed. But then Mark was kind enough to have several lunches with me, let me come to his office, let me come visit. And then he basically taught me this entire industry that now our business relies on. So thank you for that, Mark.
You are very welcome. That's what the group is for.
4-minute mile people out there, like, they exist. That's why you should be joining masterminds, to find people who are doing things you think are impossible.
Yeah. And then point number 3, pick one thing. So picking one thing is tough to do when you are drinking from a fire hose. How do you go about, I know there was a routine. I remember I'm thinking of that GIF where the plane was just taking off, and you got into that routine of like, every time you get on a plane, so what do you do when you jump on the plane, and how do you pick your one thing?
So every time I go to CG, I hop on the plane. I'm like, oh, I got to figure it out. We got this. Then
the clarity on the way home, right? The plane on the way home. Yeah.
Yeah. Same thing. You hop on the plane, and then I review the notes. And then generally, even before I hop on the plane, I have a sense of like, what's the one thing we got to hammer on? For example, for us right now, it's starting TV ads, and we're hopping on another plane tomorrow, going to Phoenix and recording TV ads.
Yeah. And your one last quarter was become a bigger presence on social media, which you guys did extremely well, which is why I knew that you were on vacation all last week, because I saw you throwing football with your son on the beach.
Man, isn't Susie great pulling the heartstrings with the family pics?
Oh, man. It's like if it didn't happen on social media, it didn't happen. So Jimmy's going to put it all out there.
Yeah. Like Susie runs all that. Like she's a maestro at that.
She's doing really well.
For people trying to do their social media presence, because I was talking to Susie about this. I'm like, dude, me throwing a baseball on a beach with my kid got more likes, got more actions than like some like investing gold I could put out. Yeah. That was shocking to me.
Yep. You're relatable. So picking the one thing. And then lastly, talk to me what your thoughts are about being a go-giver, because that's one thing that you don't think is an action step when you're coming away from a mastermind. Why do you think it's more important to give more than to go in looking for taking?
Because the whole point of a mastermind is minds come together to at a minimum, two minds come together to create a third mind, right? So if it's just somebody coaching and taking and mentoring and someone not providing, it's a different relationship. It's a mentoring relationship. Like you with Daniel, I know you contribute to him, but it's probably 90-10 him coaching you, right?
95-5, yep.
And like both of us pay for coaching, both of us pay for masterminding, but it's a prerequisite of a mastermind. It's like a potluck dinner. Everybody has to offer something. And I think a lot of people, when they're new, they feel intimidated. Like I don't have anything to offer. And I would challenge that thought and say, there's something that you are doing very well that the entire group could benefit off of.
And that's kind of the benefit of the hot seat. And I think that's the genius of having the hot seat sessions that we have. It's because like, hey, what are you doing well? What do you guys put an emphasis on? You can kind of get a sense of employee count, where you guys are at revenue wise. You get a feel for what they're doing, how they're producing, and you say, hey, that guy lines up with where I'm at, and yet he's doing it with half the amount of leads. How can I go be like that guy? And you start the synergy that comes along. But yeah, I think for me, being a go-giver all comes back. It's like a cycle. You look for the slap, and then you align and draft and pick your one thing, and then you give more. But when you give more, you become more humble, which means you got to go back and look for the slap. So it's kind of this, it could almost be this full cycle, because, we talked about looking for the slap or running to the abyss is it has to come from a place of humility. So does being a go-giver.
Yeah, because if you're not being humble and you're the go-giver, like, no, you're trying to coach the mastermind.
Yes.
So there's a certain way to give too. It's not like I like the way I like to give. Tell me if this is the way you like to give. It's just like qualify all your gives. Like I've tried this once and it worked. I've tried this 100 times. Like I know this works for sure. But also qualifying your advice, because you don't want to. Some people can come off as masterminds, try something once, and then they swear that it's gospel, that it's going to work.
Yeah, and to that point, when someone is giving that and has not qualified, I'll often ask them, how long have you been doing this? Because that's to your point, you don't want someone that's just come up with the one-time thing and then hasn't actually vetted out the entire process. You want to make sure that you've got the Roger Bannister.
And here's the wolf in sheep's clothing. It's the guy who looks like he's the go-giver, but he really wants the award for being smartest guy in the room. So it appears that he may be giving, but really he just wants everybody to think he's really smart. So be wary of that person.
Yeah. Mate, it was a great event. I think that's a good recap. Again, Loadbearing Fictions, discussed that. Inverting the Leadership Curve, as Daniel Marcos had done. By the way, Daniel Marcos has done a lot of, you can catch up with Daniel. Go to scalingup.com or, check out some of his stuff on YouTube. And then Aleister McDonald gave you can't find him online, but he did give a TEDx talk in Prescott. So if you look up Aleister McDonald, or maybe, Kenny, we can put a link to his TEDx talk. It was quite fascinating. I could sit and listen to him all day, obviously, right? We had a wonderful dinner up in the cafe up top. of the Scottsdale Hotel.
Talking Stick.
At Talking Stick, thank you. And
Yep.
Allistar was telling us stories about his safari expeditions that he led in Africa, and it was just enthralling, some of the experiences that he's had through his life.
Yeah, he seems like a fun guy.
It was good stuff. And then lastly, top 4 things, recap. Remember, if you're a part of a mastermind event, or if you're just, getting together, look for the CG slap, align and draft off someone who's been there, done that, pick your one thing, and give more to get more. Was a great presentation, Jimmy. Again, I congratulate you on what was a wonderful presentation. There's so many people that we asked at the end of the event, what was your biggest event? And a lot of the newbies, the ones that were first in the room, said that was such a great way to frame the beginning, because Jimmy kicked off our Monday morning, and so it was such a great way to kind of frame that week long, was by Jimmy's first presentation of, hey guys, let's frame this thing and make sure you can get out of it this week the most possible. So well done. Thank you.
And then thank you for getting Marcos back, putting on, because are you in charge of all the speakers now?
Well, that's a stretch. Yes, I am in charge. I certainly, obviously, there's great input. I'm not saying it's all me. The team definitely gets together and decides who's coming. And it's interesting. Daniel is now not only coaching myself, but also Eric Brewer, Frank Carver, and I think consulting with Jason Medley. So, yeah, he's definitely entrenched in the CG real estate world.
Nice. Well, as an audience member, I was thoroughly challenged by all the speakers.
Yeah, well, we got to keep raising the bar, but that is the challenge, as Jason has thrust upon me, is to keep leveling up talent. But it was good, just giving a little bit of a taste of someone who's not necessarily in the real estate industry, but someone who's a contrarian thinker. We did get really good feedback, and you saw that post on Facebook, post CG meeting, that I asked the audience, was Allistar's presentation something that you would like to hear more of? And just universally, they said, absolutely, we need to get some outside thinkers. So I'm leaning towards someone now that has more of a macroeconomic brain to kind of look at industry trends and what we should be thinking about for the future as potentially for our June meetup next.
Sweet. Looking forward to it.
All right, man. Hey, for all those listening out there, again, Jimmy, let's talk about cash flow tactics. How can people reach out to you and get in touch with you?
Yeah, so this will also be broadcast on the Rise Up Live Free podcast. And then check us out at cashflowtactics.com or on Instagram or Facebook at Cashflow Tactics.
Great. And for me, definitely hit up the Instagram. We started to tell a little bit more of our story on Instagram. So at Marck Lautour will be in the link below. And as always, if you're watching this on YouTube, remember to subscribe, hit the thumbs up and the notification bell on Facebook, thumbs up and notification bell on YouTube, so that you can never miss a video or Jimmy and my thoughts as we continue to pump out this content. Jimmy, thanks for your time, buddy.
Thanks, dude.
You're listening to Mistake-Free Real Estate Radio, the authority in passive real estate investing. No late-night calls, no clogged drains, no tenant nightmares. Take the passive investor's approach to real estate investing and trust a turnkey professional. Learn more at mistakefreerealestate.com. Until next time, remember, you don't get rich from what you earn, you get rich from what you own.